Okay, booktube, class is in session. Come closer. Come a little bit closer. Oh God, not that close. Don't you understand boundaries? Well, I guess some of you don't, and that's what this is really all about. I've changed my camera angle so I can look directly in your eyes. We need to talk about consent, booktube, and the rest of YouTube generally, because it has become abundantly and distressingly clear to me that a lot of you out there in the booktube community and in YouTube generally don't really understand how this works. Now, I'm referring, of course, to the ongoing controversy between booktuber Daniel Greene and his accuser, Naomi King. A lot of you rushed to Naomi King's defense when their first video came out, detailing some pretty horrific allegations against Daniel Greene. And then Naomi put out a second video to provide context and clear up the timeline. And I now see a lot of you backing off as if something changed. But nothing changed. Nothing in the second video changed anything about the claims in the first video. In fact, they bolstered those claims. And it's really, really upsetting to me that so many of you are either so cowardly or so misinformed that you failed to see this. So let's keep our eye on the ball here. This is how consent works. Consent is a conversation that never, ever ends. It has to be going on every single second of every intimate encounter you ever have. There is no point in any intimate encounter where consent does not need to be obtained. Consent to do one thing is not consent to do another thing. It's not even consent to do the same thing again. Consent is not something that is given once and never needs to be spoken of. Consent is not a contract. Consent can be revoked at any time for any reason. No explanation is needed. If you are engaged in hanky-panky or other intimate encounters with someone who consented to them 30 seconds ago, or even 1 second ago, and they change their mind, you have to stop right that second, not in a few minutes, right that second. Now, you don't have to be happy about it, but you do have to do it. And if you don't, if consent has been revoked or not even clearly obtained, and you do it anyway, I don't care what the algorithm does to my channel. That is rape, and it isn't anything else. Now, here are some things that do not change that equation. And these are things that have been leveled at or revealed by Naomi King. A prior relationship with you, no matter how messy, does not change that equation. The person being a sex worker or an alleged sex worker does not change that equation. The person accepting money from you doesn't change that equation. The person sending you texts or emails asking you for a romantic relationship does not change that equation. The person engaging in infidelity with you doesn't change that equation. All of that is irrelevant. The person lying in bed next to you naked under the blanket doesn't change any of that. All of you complaining about context and Naomi seeming kind of sus or kind of off in their second video, are you children? Do you not understand how this works? The only thing that matters in this story is whether consent was obtained by Daniel Greene in the moments where the two incidents being alleged occurred. If consent was not clearly obtained and Daniel Greene did it anyway, that is sexual assault, and it isn't anything else. No amount of context changes that equation. So here are the things in Naomi's two videos that have not changed. This is Naomi's narrative. Number one, Daniel and Naomi agreed that this particular rendezvous they were having in Vegas was not going to be sexual. They were meeting up as friends. Number two, Naomi claims that no consent was acquired for either of these encounters. Number three, Naomi claims that during the first incident, they were too high and too groggy to legally consent in the first place. And number four, in both incidents, Daniel did it anyway. that part of Naomi's story is consistent. And if that part is true, as I believe it is, and I'll explain why in a minute, then what Daniel did was sexual assault, and it wasn't anything else. So why do I believe Naomi? Well, let's just be autistic about it. I'm a numbers guy. False accusations of sexual assault are vanishingly rare. At best, they are as common as other false accusations of crime, which are vanishingly rare. Statistically speaking, it is more likely that any particular man accused of sexual assault did it than that he didn't. So, whenever I encounter situations like this, I default to believing the accuser until and unless overwhelming evidence proves to me otherwise. I'm not sitting on a jury here. YouTube is not court. I don't have to play by the rules of a legal trial, and neither do any of you. I can just look at the reality of the world around me. So I believe Naomi, and you should believe Naomi too. Now, let me end with a bit of advice that has never steered me wrong. And I want this advice particularly to go out to the young men who may be watching or listening to this. The advice is this: make enthusiastic consent your baseline for any sexual activity you want to engage in. If you have not obtained enthusiastic consent from the other person, then you have not obtained consent. If you're unsure whether you've obtained enthusiastic consent, then you have not. You should assume that there is no consent in every single situation for every single act you want to do. If you assume there is consent and you do it anyway, you have just crossed the line. You have become the villain, and you should not be surprised when the rest of us treat you that way. So don't do it. I believe Naomi. I believed Naomi when their first video dropped. I still believe Naomi now, and you should too. If you found the evidence and testimony provided in Naomi's first video compelling, nothing about the second video should have changed your mind, if you understand how consent works properly. So, I plan to keep supporting Naomi. I plan, when I'm able, in a week or two, to make a financial contribution to Naomi's legal defense at the PayPal they set up for just that purpose, at medicalmangreene@gmail.com. And I think you should do the same. If you're someone in BookTube who rushed to Naomi's defense and now is backing off, you should be ashamed of yourself, and you owe them an apology. Grow a spine, stand up for the rights of women and other marginalized people in the face of institutionalized violence against them.